Hi, and welcome to Health Quest. I'm Christy Dotson. I'm your host for today's show. And today we're going to talk about a subject that's important for both men and women. We're going to talk about everything that you need to know about menopause, everything that you need to know but no one seems to know. Well, our guest here is going to fill us in on the subject of menopause, and we're going to speak with Deborah Arneson.
Hi.
Deborah, how are you?
I'm great.
Good.
It's good to be here to share this really vital information with men and women, so it'll be fun.
Good. Well, Deborah, why don't you go ahead and tell us what is this mysterious M word, menopause?
Well, menopause has always been kind of shoveled under the carpet for the last, I don't know, probably 2 centuries. And,
so.
Here come the baby boomers, and we stomp our little feet a little bit, and we're not going to settle for anything less than answers. So we're making this as a huge percentage of the population in America that are making this transition into menopause or into perimenopause, which are the symptoms that surround menopause. Anything from hot flashes to depression to, pain and aches in your joints to dry skin to, constipation. I mean, the body goes through a lot of changes sometimes, especially if there have been long-term dietary deficiencies, which we'll get into. But, a lot of my women are just like, oh my gosh, the hot flashes. Well, when I started some of my changes, I had some of those too, but I quit coffee and I quit wine for about a year, and they went completely away.
Now, are you suggesting then that certain foods actually promote or provoke menopause?
Yeah, depending on the symptoms. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, a lot of people would be really bummed to hear that one.
Yeah.
And, most of us want what we want and like what we like, and hey, we deserve it. Because our lives are stressed and we don't do anything bad anytime ever anyway. So it's when I had to give those things up, it was I was constantly I looked beautiful. I was just sweating and flushed and very spritzy all the time, but you're taking your clothes up, put your clothes on, take your jacket off, put your clothes on.
Hot flashes.
Yeah, and it's not fun. And I was oh gosh, now I have to figure out what's doing this. And it was simple because caffeine is a big perpetrator. And alcohol is very high in sugar, which actually pushes the adrenals even further.
Interesting. Now then, is there a certain age when you are in theory supposed to go through menopause then?
Well, in theory, it depends on which decade we're talking about, but it's getting younger and younger. I mean, I'm seeing more and more young girls, who are going through perimenopausal changes much earlier. It seems as though my women are starting more so in their late 30s, early 40s now, versus 10 years ago it was late 40s, early 50s, or 15 years ago. Late 40s, early 50s. I mean, ideally, you should go through it in your 50s to 60s.
Okay.
But maybe, maybe because of so many, I'm sure, I say maybe, but I know for sure because of so many endocrine disruptors and so many chemicals and pesticides and a poor dietary choice, and women are stressed beyond belief. They're not only mothers and wives and nurturers, and here's the mom and the whole, sphere kind of circles around them. They're also working full-time, or donating time at the school. They're on boards. They're just crazed, so they're stretched to the max.
Okay.
And when you have more stress, you use up nutrients faster, basically. So you go through your bank account faster when you have stress, your nutrient bank account. And when those things aren't replaced properly or put back into position, then you will age faster.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I just moved this past week.
Oh, I'd rather give birth. Oh, you have my total sympathy.
And talk about somebody being stressed. And I was starving, all week, and I was craving sugar.
Sure.
Things I would not normally have eaten, but because of the extra stress, I can see where it did affect my body.
And it's honestly, your body is wise. It's like it knows, sugar's instant energy. If at least you're not sleeping, you're not eating. Give me something that'll at least give me something to burn off real fast, so I can replace your stores. And you're lean. So lean people don't have much fat reserve. If you have someone with a higher body fat percentage, at least the body goes, okay, we can go get some fat. In your case, they're like,
we're out. We need help here.
Right.
So then tell us then, how can one actually reverse the onset of early menopause then?
Well, I've seen it happen a good number of times. I'll take women who are in their 50s, and I work with them for 3 or 4 months. Next thing you know, they've stopped cycling for a year or two, and their periods come back. And they're just not necessarily thrilled about it because, gee, who misses that? Not many people. But point is, I tell them, your body just really wasn't quite ready to do that. It was just missing the components it needed to make the hormones to keep you cycling. So, you know, your natural state is usually somewhat addressed by your mom's transition or your aunts if you can't find out. If your mom had a hysterectomy or something like mine did, then I asked my aunts when they went through. Most of my aunts went through in their 50s, you know, their mid-50s.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, a lot of my women are going through in their mid-40s. It's 10 years sooner than they should be.
Now, is it possible for someone to actually go through menopause without the symptoms of menopause?
Sure. Absolutely.
Because that's the way I'd like to see it happen.
Sure, I pretty much did. I mean, except for those hot flashes, provoked by caffeine, I pretty much did. It was amazing, actually. It's like my transition. I've been very blessed in my life. Thank you. Because even like, you know, even when I look back, my periods were really heavy and bad with some cramping when I was younger, but it never bothered me. It's like I just never remember being debilitated by any of that.
Okay.
So my transition through perimenopause has been a cakewalk in comparison to most people's, other than that year of flashing provoked by wine. You know, because when you're going through it, you're like, I'm drinking. This is too early. You know, I got a little upset about it. I was like, oh no, now I have to deal with osteoporosis, vaginal dryness, you know, poor vision, you know,
Time out. I don't
gaining
want
weight,
that.
thick waist, big upper body, you know, all these really bad astigmatisms that come with, you know, that come with menopause. I mean, I was very upset initially because I was relatively young, and mine was promoted by a lot of female surgeries when I was younger.
Okay.
As you and I have talked, you know, doctors see me, they want to like get out the scalpel and do something
Start
major. Cut her, take it out, you know. So I went through a lot of female surgeries and was prompted into early menopause because of, you know, they took the ovary and they left a little piece of an ovary. It, you know, lasted me for about 7 years after
not
the last
good.
surgery.
Not
Well,
good.
you know, I mean, the good news, I mean, I see my skin changing, and that'll happen too. You'll see you lose collagen as estrogen goes down.
Okay.
You know, you get things hang easier. If women smoke, they can really promote collagen loss. If they drink excessively and do a lot of sugar and things that dehydrate them, because sugar is dehydrating. If they don't eat their fatty acids, if they don't, you know, consume the fibers to break the fatty acids down from their vegetables and their fruits, if they don't eat minerals or take supplementation appropriately. I mean, it becomes a balancing act when you go into menopause, and most people are horribly overwhelmed, and rightfully so, because A, the information highway isn't vast in this arena, and finding someone who actually has gone through it and who is wise to it and who is resourceful and doesn't want to go through hell with it would be my advice to the women out there. It's like, find someone who's already been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and, you know, has survived.
And learn from them.
Yeah, and somebody who follows a natural pathway.
Okay.
So, you know, I know a lot about it because I was involved in
You've
it.
been there. Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, it's a backdoor gift. It's like, didn't want to go through it that young, but I did, and now it's like, I know all of this because I care about what happened. I don't want to take hormone replacement. I know too much about Premarin. I know too much about synthetic. I know too much about how doctors, unfortunately, don't really balance hormones for women. They don't know how. So it's up to you to be in charge of your own balancing act. And it is an act because as you go through menopause, your hormones are going to vacillate greatly for the first probably 6 to 7 or 8 years.
Okay. But if I've heard you correctly, it sounds like a lot of the problems or the symptoms can be alleviated through foods.
Well, through food and exercise.
Okay.
You know, and mindful, like things that are mindful, like yoga and meditation and breath work, things that calm your body down and actually slow down the speed up process.
Okay.
So breath work does that, yoga does that,
what
walking in the woods does that, you know, having a dog. I mean, I didn't buy her, but I went and took one of my good friends, my mortgage broker. I said, you need a dog. And we went out and got her a Yorkie last week. She's going through menopause, the hot flashes, and she smokes like a chimney.
That could do it.
And I said, you got to give it, I know. So I went out and bought her a pack of organic cigarettes, and I said, okay, I'm going to go pick out a Yorkie for you. So I bought her, or picked out a dog that's a Kappa dog, because she's very like, ooh, and this dog is like, you know, really mellow and easygoing, because animals are wonderful. They calm people down, providing they're not nuts.
Okay.
You know, so I said, Carol, you need more oils, and you need this dog. So she and the dog are bonding.
Oh, good.
They're doing great,
And
yeah.
her symptoms are subsided?
We'll see. You know,
Okay.
she just got the dog on Sunday, or Saturday, so.
So we'll see what happens there.
But, you know, things like that. So foods are important.
Now, what types of foods? Now, if you could name maybe 3 essential food groups or types of foods which would be beneficial in the
Well,
hormone
healthy
regulation.
proteins and non-hormone based proteins, I may add. So it's like, I don't want a chicken, that's coming out of a local grocery store that's pumped full of, hormones that are estrogen mimickers and pesticides in the grains and antibiotics because they gave it hormones to make it grow so fast. It grew so fast, its
Exactly.
endocrine system couldn't keep up, so they pumped it full of antibiotics because it was getting sick all the time. That's not the kind of high quality protein I'm talking about. I'm talking about animals that are free range, if you can get them, and if you can't, pray over them. But free range means that it's allowed to, roam in the environment and hang out and be really happy till bada boom, bada bang,
Okay, gotcha.
So, I mean, even duck and venison and buffalo and pheasant, the things that are like out in the environment, hanging out, having a good time, exercising all day long,
Okay.
doing what they do. Grass-fed beef, rather than corn-fed.
Now, can you actually find grass-fed beef?
Sure,
in
it's all
stores?
over the place.
Really?
And you can find a lot of wild gamey. Get the yellow pages out and look up gamey meats, and there are distributors all over the place for gamey meats.
Oh, really?
Yep,
Didn't know that.
absolutely. So, and where you can, organic where you can. The healthier, the more live. Again, another reason for that, Christy, is because if you're eating an animal that's highly stressed, and if you take, for instance, a chicken that's crowded into a cage with 300 other birds, it's tethered on its foot, and they cut the tip of their beaks off so they can't peck each other's eyes out because they're in such close quarters.
Yeah.
That bird is stressed to the nines. And if an animal or a human has enduring stress for any length of time, the amount of cortisol that animal produces is exceptional, in the sense that cortisol is known to induce tumor and fibroid and cyst formation in humans and animals, thereby increasing your risk of developing cancer. The grossest thing of all is that when they take these birds, like chickens, and they test them, if they'll stick something in, they'll see like, a sore or lesion or something on the leg, they chop off that portion and sell you the rest of the bird.
Oh, you're kidding.
So, no, you should always eat a whole fryer, a whole chicken versus a cut-up chicken.
Because you never know where that part came from. Okay.
So I'm doing the chickens that run around the yard and have a good life, okay? Simple as that. So you have to be really, it's like people are like, oh my God, this is too much information. But think about your food chain. I mean, you are what you eat. You become what you eat. And as much as I can, I'm eating a happy animal. And I'm very grateful for that amino acid in my body, that protein. Because, I'm holding together pretty good. I should exercise more than I do. But, I feel great. I could run circles around the kids in my office. They're half my age, and, they're like looking at me like, stop already. So, obviously food has a huge impact, and fatty acids are really important. I eat probably an avocado at least, a whole avocado at least 4 or 5 days out of the week.
And
I
that's
eat
a
probably
good fat.
yeah. There's a
Okay.
difference between saturated and unsaturated. We only get hydrogenated for the most part, most people, because we're eating packaged, processed, long shelf life items. And hydrogenated fats will kill you faster than anything.
That's
They're
what I've
loaded with
heard.
nickel. Yeah, it's a processed fat that was originally made for transmission fluid. And it was actually made to keep transmission fluid so it wouldn't get thick and muck up the engines of cars and trains. This was in the 40s.
So one has to wonder how this actually made it into our food chain.
Well, I had a chemist on my show about 5-6 years ago who actually participated in the creation of hydrogenated oils, and he said if he had ever known, along with his cohorts, that the government was going to use hydrogenated fats in our food chain, they never would have made them because they're not meant for human consumption.
That's amazing, because all of these food
Disgusting.
products that contain hydrogenated oils, they've all received the old seal of
Stamp of
approval
approval.
by the FDA.
Please.
Scary.
It's all political.
Scary.
The things that consumerism is driven by is marketing, and marketing, their whole, I always say, I think their effort, when it comes to marketing in the food business is to keep us stunned and stupid. If you don't get nutrients, you get a little dim. It's like, huh? What was that? Huh? Where'd that go? Huh? What'd they do? What'd they say? You just get slower because, your cells in your body, and you have billions of cells, and these cells have a power plant inside. It's called the mitochondria, and it's 2 pairs of electrons that, are unpaired initially. They come together, and then you've got, this cellular wall that's supposed to provide protection for the mitochondria to create this combustion process, which gives your cells energy. So when you see people without energy, their cells are being fed, and what comes filtering through the wall of the cell are vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, and they come in and go tick, 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 like that, and they tickle the mitochondria and just excite it and get it to like, whoa, start moving around.
Okay.
If you don't have nutrients coming into the cell, bathing through the cell wall, what will happen is toxins usually are there in place of that, and they'll move through a permeable cell wall. And I picture them nerf batting the mitochondria to death, like ducking, you know, and pretty soon the cell's like, okay, I quit, I'm not going to do it, I'm just sitting here being quiet, maybe it'll go away. You know, so, I mean, that's called detoxification when you start moving the toxins out of the cells. And it's a healthy, hearty process. It takes time. So you want to make sure as you get older, especially, that you're putting in the things that will nourish your cells. So you think about it as a live process versus a dead, you know, a hydrogenated product that can sit on a shelf for, you know, 2 months to 6 years.
Right.
It has no life. Not even a pest is going to chew on it or eat it.
Right.
So if nothing's going to, like, mold doesn't grow, we got a problem. You know, or some kind of bacteria doesn't grow in it, if it has a shelf life that long, it's going to actually be like a highway robber. It's sticking your body up and going, give me all your B vitamins. Because at some point, these food things that are created, you know, expensively in labs to seduce our taste buds into eating them, become highway robbers, meaning they go in and they stick your body up and they take out vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants.
Scary.
So it's like your bank account is always being raped and
Being
pillaged.
depleted.
Yeah, it's like they're going to the bank every day going, give me more, give me more, give me more. Pretty soon you don't have anything left. And you know that when people come in and they say, I have no energy. You know, when you have no energy, it means your bank account is like pretty well wiped out. Now you got to build it back up.
Gotcha. Now you had mentioned that you know, a lot of the problems that people are experiencing are due to the pesticides that are in the food products.
Right.
Now what about water? Because I know water is an essential element, but how good is our water supply?
Well, it's becoming a big concern. In fact, I was with a friend of mine who's a nutritionist this weekend, and we were talking, of course, like we do, about business and just gabbing. She said, Deborah, did you see the latest report in one of the journals? I think it was the Journal of Preventive Nutrition, where they were talking about, and there was also an article in the Trib, and they were talking about the horrendous amounts of drugs that pharmaceutical companies are unwarranted to do, but doing. They're dumping these testing drugs and these expiration dated drugs into the water supplies because these factories are all in rivers.
Of course.
And they're finding 300 times the amounts of most of these drugs, diabetic drugs, heart medications, seizure medications.
You're kidding.
In our water supply. Now, if you think about it, Christy, our water supply, the things that we look at, our lakes, rivers, and streams, there's underground water tables underneath. So they filter down, like go through rock and shale, and then they hit another water supply, and then they go down into the Earth's core. This is where our water comes from, so then it springs back up somewhere, and we've got spring waters. So our spring waters can be affected. You know, those molecules in medications are so small that even a filtration or a purification process can't extract those molecules. So we're taking other people's medications, basically.
Oh, no.
Unless you get a really pure source of water.
Now, what about utilizing a home Brita filter or something like that?
Well, there are different modalities of cleaning your water up that you can utilize, and anything is better than nothing. And the Brita is probably the lowest step on the totem pole, but it's a notable big step for taking out heavy metals. And heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury all interfere with hormones in the body. So, you know, if you have a lot of mercury, it tends to deposit in the thyroid. Aluminum likes the brain. Lead likes bones. And each of these different organs and systems, of course, have many different beneficial productivity menus that they create for the system.
Right.
So if you have a lot of mercury in your thyroid, you're going to be tired. So if you're continually taking more and more mercury in, you know, you're creating havoc for a cell. It's going to displace minerals for sure. And minerals are usually prompted into action by water-soluble vitamins, so those get displaced as well. And then pretty soon we've got this toxic heavy element sitting in the cells in the thyroid. Your fatty acids aren't in there. So the thyroid then is no longer making enough of its hormones to keep you active and make you feel good. Your thyroid produces less than a teaspoon of hormones every year.
That's
if you were to measure it.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like that much, you know, can put you on your knees. You could be exhausted, fatigued, have, hypertension. You could be constipated, dry skin, moody, tired all the time. I mean, some people, I think, feel so bad they don't even know they feel bad. They felt
Right.
bad for so long.
So then why do so many people get their thyroids removed?
Well, isn't that a funny question?
Yeah, I mean, if they need it so much, why is it happening?
It's just modern medicine. I slice and splice, take it out. Can I tell you how many people I know have been in serious car accidents and were told they had to amputate and they didn't,
You're kidding.
and they're fine today. So, I mean, my advice when it comes to, medicine is like, go get an opinion until you find one that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't settle for the first, second, or even the third.
Go for the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, go beyond the third because, most of them parrot one another. And it's not that doctors are ill-intended, it's that they know what they know, and that's it. It doesn't mean that they know what's best for you.
Uh-huh.
Everyone has biochemical individuality, and none of that is taken into account. The purpose of medicine is to find what works for most of the people, most of the time with the greatest gain for the medical profession, and the lowest statistical index for loss of life. Hopefully. But that's not always the case.
Gotcha.
So you just have to be a savvy consumer.
So what else can consumers do to build up their system so that they're not as affected by the chemicals and the pesticides that they're subjected to?
Can I tell you, oils are very, very powerful.
Okay.
So healthy fatty acids, I mean, like with my women, I'll have them eat an avocado a day. Like before they go to bed at night, they get 9 organic tortilla chips, corn chips, with a whole avocado mashed up or sliced and put on the chips. That'll be their bedtime snack.
Okay.
I have women doing, my women doing at least a tablespoon of these healthy, organic, unsaturated oils at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have them doing, like a container of hummus a day on top of that, or maybe 18 to 24 olives, if not the hummus. I'll have
Okay.
them doing 2 or 3 tablespoons of raw nut butters, not roasted, but raw, because
Okay.
the glycemic index or the sugar index is lower. These are the fatty acids that go in and kind of, like I said in the other show, they kind of kiss the cells. And the cells are like, whoa, and they get nice and plump and
Okay.
protected. So think of your cells as having a raincoat around them. And that raincoat is a phosphoglycolipid. Phospho is phosphorus, glyco is glycogen or sugars, lipid is a lipid membrane. And it coats the cell and gives it protection from oxidizing free radicals that we bring in from air and water and pesticides and, hydrogenated fats that we get in our food chain or fried foods, which are rancid.
Mm-hmm.
So you want healthy fatty acids in the body, and you should put them on your skin.
Now, is it the free radicals that could potentially lead to such things as cancer
Yes.
down the road?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these oils are important.
Very important. But again, they have to cleave to protein. So it's about a balanced dietary protocol.
Okay.
So if you eat just, fatty acids, like if you eat a nut butter,
Mhm.
you've got protein in that. Because a nut butter is primarily fatty acids with a little bit of protein.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a straight fat. If you eat the oils which are extracted from the cedar nut have absolutely no protein. Because
Okay.
we've taken the nut out of the equation. We have just the oil from the nut. That has to be eaten with a protein.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So you
it's-
have to make sure you have a protein present.
Okay. So
And a
that's
healthy
why
one.
the meal should be well-rounded.
Balanced.
Interesting. I tell
Yeah.
you, in all my years growing up, I don't think my mother ever mentioned the need for of oils to me at all.
Well, when I was a kid, margarine came into vogue, I think, when I was 10 years old. But we grew up in Minnesota, and it's like we used butter. We had butter on the table every night at dinner, and we had home-baked goods, and we didn't stay away from fatty acids. And kids need their fatty acids big time. I'm seeing kids who are growing up on no fats in the house because their parents are on a low-fat diet.
Right.
And these kids are a train wreck. You see them like sitting there when the parents aren't looking, they grab a stick of butter and shove it in their face. It's like instinctively, intrinsically, they know they need fatty acids.
Uh-huh.
And saturated's better than nothing. And there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with saturated fats. The problem is we have no unsaturated fats. So you should have 2/3 more unsaturated to saturated in your diet.
Interesting.
If you do 60 grams a day of fats, you want at least 40 of those to be from unsaturated plant seeds and nuts and oils from those foods.
Now, is this the reason why a lot of kids are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD,
Oh, yeah.
unable to sit still is because they're
Autism.
missing the fats?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just wonder why this isn't being taught. I mean, I know we've all seen the standard American.
It is in the integrative field. I mean, you
Okay.
really have to be a provocative, curious person to get out there, not settle for the doctor's diagnosis.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a woman, Dr. Patricia Kane, who's doing amazing research on fatty acid, and she's reversing autism in children. It's taken her 2-3 years to do it, but she's taking perfectly healthy. We're talking autistic kids who become autistic at 2 and 3 years old, after
Okay.
assault and injury,
Okay.
whether it's chemical or vaccines or whatever. But she's reversing it in 2 to 3 years, so she shows the beautiful kid before, the autistic child, and then the beautiful kid after she heals them with fatty acids and minerals.
See, there is power in food.
Yeah,
and
there
people just
is.
don't even realize
Well,
it.
God gave us just an amazing abundance, a cornucopia of gifts here, and we're just
Yes,
all
He
like,
did.
yeah, 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 I can do better. And we're killing people with this garbage. It's astonishing.
Well, I always tell people that the body is fearfully and wonderfully made, and it can do remarkable things, even self-healing, but it needs the proper tools in order to do so.
Sure it does. And you can, your foundation comes when you're a kid, and then when you're a teenager, of course, we all go a little ballistic and do really cruddy foods. I mean, I was just nuts for fried foods. I ate more French fries than Carter's Got Pills. And I never drank water until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, me
If
too.
it wasn't soda, it wasn't in my mouth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had a really good foundation for which I'm grateful to my mom and dad. And then I went berserk for 15 years. And then I came back. But a lot of kids aren't coming up with a good foundation. So maybe my transition through menopause was softer and gentler and easy because I had a really good foundation when I was young.
Well, I'll tell you, my goal is to prevent the menopausal symptoms
The mental pause. Huh?
by continuing to eat my fatty acids. I'm going to stay
They're
on a
really
strict regimen
important.
as far as that's concerned.
You're important. I put my women on 50% fatty acids.
Really?
Stabilizes insulin, burns fat like crazy, and they feel like $1 million, and they look beautiful.
Well, is that not a weight loss tip?
Yeah. And oil your body.
From the inside out?
No, from the outside in,
From the
too.
outside in, okay.
So I have my women going home. They take a hot bath or shower while they're wet. Sesame oil from neck to toe. Put
You're
on an
kidding.
old robe. Let it soak in. It's not real oily because you're wet. You're watered down. And, I have women who just, won't use lotions anymore. They just use unrefined, organic sesame oil.
Interesting.
No chemicals, no phenol compounds.
Well, that's a tip that I think I'm going to implement.
Yeah,
Good.
so it's great for soothing you and helping you to sleep great, too. And if you're really vata, like your head's like, nuts,
That's me.
put it right here on the top of your head.
Really?
It calms down your brain. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Well, with all that said, thank you so much for
You're
being on the show.
welcome. You're welcome.
Again, I'm Christy Dotson, and thank you for tuning in to Health Quest.
That was
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah.
That was fun.